Here are simple one-line question-answer pairs that cover the entire Snow White story. Perfect for kids and spoken English practice. Who is the main character of the story? Snow White is the main character of the story. What kind of girl is Snow White? Snow White is gentle, brave, and kind. Where does the story begin? The story begins in a faraway magical kingdom. What was the queen doing by the window? The queen was sewing by the window. What happened when the queen pricked her finger? A drop of red blood fell on the white snow. What wish did the queen make? She wished for a daughter white as snow, red as blood, and black-haired. Who was born after the queen's wish came true? A beautiful baby girl named Snow White was born. What happened to Snow White's real mother? She became ill and passed away. Why did the king marry again? The king was lonely and sad. What kind of woman was the new queen? She was beautiful, but cruel and jealous. What special object did the new queen own? She owned a magic mirror. What question did the queen ask the mirror every day? She asked who the fairest of them all was. Who was first called the fairest by the mirror? The queen herself was called the fairest. How did Snow White grow up? She grew into a lovely young girl. When did the mirror stop praising the queen? When Snow White became fairer than her. Why did the queen become angry with Snow White? Because Snow White was more beautiful than her. What did the queen order the soldier to do? She ordered him to kill Snow White. Why did the soldier not kill Snow White? Because he saw her innocence and kindness. What did the soldier do instead? He told Snow White to run away. What proof did the soldier give the queen? He gave her a deer's heart. Where did Snow White run after escaping? She ran deep into the forest. What did Snow White find in the forest? She found a small cottage. Who lived in the cottage? 7 dwarves lived in the cottage. What did Snow White do inside the cottage? She cleaned the house and cooked food. Where did Snow White sleep? She slept on the 7 little beds. Where were the dwarves working? They were working in a mine. How did the dwarves feel when they saw Snow White? They were surprised and curious. Why did the dwarves let Snow White stay? Because she had nowhere else to go. What promise did the dwarves make to Snow White? They promised to protect her. What did the magic mirror say later? It said Snow White was still the fairest. How did the queen react to the mirror's answer? She decided to kill Snow White herself. How did the queen disguise herself first? She disguised herself as a peddler woman. What item did she use to harm Snow White first? She used tight lace bodice strings. How was Snow White saved the first time? The dwarves cut the laces and saved her. What warning did the dwarves give Snow White? They told her not to open the door to strangers. What was the queen's second trick? She used a poisoned comb. What happened when Snow White used the comb? She collapsed immediately. How was Snow White saved the second time? The dwarves removed the comb. What was the queen's most dangerous plan? She made a poisoned apple. How was the apple poisoned? One half was poisoned and one half was safe. How did the queen trick Snow White with the apple? She ate the safe half to gain trust. What happened after Snow White ate the apple? She fell into a deep sleep. Could the dwarves save her this time? No, they could not wake her. Where did the dwarves place Snow White? They placed her in a glass coffin. Who passed by the glass coffin? A prince passed by. How did the prince feel when he saw Snow White? He felt deep love and sorrow. How did Snow White wake up? A piece of apple fell from her throat. Who helped move the coffin? The prince's servants helped move it. What happened when Snow White woke up? Everyone realized she was alive. What happened to Snow White and the prince? They got married. What did the mirror say at the end? Snow White was now the fairest princess. What punishment did the wicked queen receive? She was punished and lost her power forever. Who did Snow White call her family? She called the 7 dwarfs her family. How did Snow White live her life in the end? She lived with love, kindness, and gratitude. Below are long, exam-style questions with detailed answers, all based only on the Snow White story you provided. These are suitable for school exams, written practice, and spoken English preparation. 1. Describe the birth of Snow White and the wish of her mother. Answer. Snow White's story begins with a kind queen who sat by her window sewing one winter day. While sewing, she accidentally pricked her finger, and a drop of red blood fell on the white snow outside. Looking at the contrast of red blood on white snow, the queen wished for a daughter who would be as white as snow, as red as blood, and with hair as black as ebony. Her wish soon came true, and she gave birth to a beautiful baby girl named Snow White. Sadly, the queen did not live long to raise her daughter. 2. Explain how the new queen became jealous of Snow White. Answer. After Snow White's mother passed away, the king married again. The new queen was very beautiful, but she was also cruel, proud, and jealous. She owned a magic mirror that always told the truth. Every day, she asked the mirror who the fairest of them all was, and for many years, the mirror praised her. However, as Snow White grew older and more beautiful, the mirror one day declared that Snow White was fairer than the queen. This truth made the queen furious, and her jealousy turned into hatred. 3. Why did the queen order the soldier to kill Snow White? And how was Snow White saved? Answer. The queen could not accept that Snow White was more beautiful than her. So she ordered a soldier to take Snow White into the forest, kill her, and bring back her heart as proof. The soldier took Snow White deep into the woods, but when he saw her innocence and kindness, he felt pity for her. He could not kill her, and instead told her to run far away. To deceive the queen, he killed a deer and brought its heart to her. In this way, Snow White's life was saved. 4. Describe Snow White's life with the 7 dwarfs. Answer. After running through the forest, Snow White found a small cottage that belonged to 7 dwarfs. She cleaned the messy house, cooked food, and fell asleep on their little beds. When the dwarfs returned from work in the mine, they were surprised to find her there. Snow White told them about the queen and her danger. Feeling sorry for her, the dwarfs allowed her to stay with them and promised to protect her. Snow White lived happily with them, helping with housework and feeling safe for the first time. 5. How did the queen try to kill Snow White using disguises? Answer. The queen discovered through her magic mirror that Snow White was still alive and living with the dwarfs. She decided to kill Snow White herself by using disguises. First, she dressed as a peddler woman and tricked Snow White into wearing tight lace bodices, which almost killed her. The dwarves saved Snow White by cutting the laces. Next, the queen disguised herself as a comb seller and used a poisoned comb. Again, the dwarves saved Snow White by removing the comb from her hair. 6. Explain how the poisoned apple finally defeated Snow White. Answer. When her earlier plans failed, the queen made her most dangerous weapon, a poisoned apple. One half of the apple was red and poisonous, while the other half was white and safe. Disguised as a kind farmer woman, she convinced Snow White to eat the apple by eating the safe half herself. When Snow White bit the poisoned part, she immediately collapsed and fell into a deep sleep. This time, even the dwarves could not save her. 7. What did the dwarfs do after Snow White fell into a deep sleep? Answer. Believing Snow White to be dead, the dwarfs were heartbroken. Because her beauty remained untouched, they placed her gently inside a glass coffin on a hill where sunlight could shine on her face. They kept watch over her, mourning her loss and remembering her kindness. They hoped that one day a miracle might happen, but they did not know how to save her from the powerful poison. 8. How was Snow White brought back to life? Answer. One day, a prince passed by the hill and saw Snow White lying in the glass coffin. He was immediately filled with love and sorrow. He asked the dwarfs for permission to take her with him to honor her memory. While the prince's servants were carrying the coffin, they stumbled, and the coffin shook. This caused a piece of the poisoned apple to fall out of Snow White's throat. She opened her eyes and came back to life, surprising everyone. 9. Describe the ending of the story and the fate of the wicked queen. Answer. After Snow White awakened, she reunited happily with the dwarfs and later married the prince. The kingdom was filled with joy and celebration. When the wicked queen asked her magic mirror again, it told her that Snow White, now a princess, was the fairest of all. The queen went to the wedding, but was punished for her evil deeds. Her power was taken away, and she was never able to harm anyone again. Snow White lived a peaceful life full of love and gratitude. 10. What moral lesson does the story of Snow White teach us? Answer. The story of Snow White teaches us that kindness, innocence, and goodness always win over jealousy and evil. Snow White's gentle nature earned her true friends and protection, while the queen's jealousy destroyed her own happiness. The story shows that beauty lies not only in appearance, but also in a pure heart, and that evil actions always lead to punishment in the end.